Welcome to episode 2 in our series on the joy of writing chord progressions. In this video, we're going to work on a very nice reharmonization of Shenandoah. Let's take a listen to the original. And here's our final reharmonization. As always, we'll be using the map in Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro to create the reharmonization and to explore all sorts of interesting techniques, from chord substitutions to inversions to secondary dominants, sub-fives, and many others. In this video, we're also going to look at how to create effective bass lines, investigate the 3 minor chords region in the map, and also how to borrow chords from other modes and to modulate into other keys using pivot chords. If you're familiar with Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro, you may go straight to the next chapter in this video. For those of you who are not familiar with Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro, remember that this map helps us understand and visualize harmony in a unique and coherent way. Every song that has been written or is yet to be written that's tonal is in this map. As always, we'll start with the original progression laid out on our canvas. In tonal harmony, there are 3 regions: the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant. And we map every harmonic function in a specific place on this map. The 1 chord is always in the tonic region at 12 o'clock. This is our home, where we want to return after our journey around the map. The 4 is always in the subdominant region at 11 o'clock. This is a transitional place, and we can see it as a mountain. And the 5 is always in the dominant region at 1 o'clock. This is the region with the most amount of tension and excitement. We see it as a boat on a rough sea. We certainly want to return home when we're in this region. Every harmonic function has its own place on the map. We can view the map at different levels, with more and more functions appearing as we zoom in. But don't feel overwhelmed about all the possible functions available. We don't have to use them all every time we write a song. These arrows and brackets are all the best roads that we can take. As we always say, a song is a story that you can tell while traveling from function to function within the map. And if you want to arrive safely at your destination, you take the best roads. If you have Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro, you can use it while watching this video and then try the different techniques I'll be showing you. Pause the video if you want to explore your own ideas, but you don't need Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro to follow the entire process. There's also an interactive PDF version of the map called the Composer's Guide to Tonality. So let's get started. Our original progression is in the key of E flat major, and we're only using 4 chords: E flat major, B flat major, A flat major, and C minor. These, of course, are the 1, 5, 4, and 6 chords of the key. Let's play the original chord progression and see how we're traveling around the map. The first thing I want you to notice is how this progression relies heavily on the plagal cadence. This movement from the subdominant to the tonic is essential when we want to get that hymn-like sound. It's only on the last chords that we find a 4, 5, 1, this subdominant, dominant to tonic path that ends with an authentic cadence. Also really important is how this last 4, 5, 1 is used in the ending tag. Most phrases in traditional folk songs are 8 measures long. Also important is the use of the 6th chord, this C minor in the tonic region. The 6th minor allows us to introduce a different color without leaving the tonic region. Remember that chords in the same region share lots of qualities and can be used as substitutes of one another. The 1 chord with the 6th chord in the tonic region, the 4 and the 2 in the subdominant region, and the 5 and the 7 diminished in the dominant region. So our first reharm is going to be in measure 2. When you have a chord that repeats across several measures, like this E flat right here, we should always consider introducing new colors to the harmonic progression. So let's just change the E flat into an E flat over G. We're just adding color, playing the 1 chord in first inversion. This is going to create nice movement in the bass, and we're approaching the A flat in measure 3 chromatically from below. Remember, bass movements of perfect fifths down or stepwise up or down are the most effective. And by the way, we're going to consider bass lines a lot in today's video. Bass movement is one of the most important elements in harmony by far. So we added some color by just using an inversion of the 1 chord. But this song is pretty slow. And in slow songs, we have the opportunity to increase the density of the harmonic rhythm. So instead of thinking of a 1 chord per measure harmonic rhythm, we can start considering a 2 or even a 4 chord per measure harmonic rhythm. Furthermore, this song doesn't make use of the strong authentic cadence. It's only until the end that we see it, and there's no use of a dominant chord anywhere in the original progression other than that 5 chord at the end. In other words, the tonic is not strongly established anywhere throughout the song. This gives us a great opportunity to reharmonize the song by traveling from region to region with more freedom. We're pretty much free to use any diatonic function that we want. But remember to always consider the melody. You do not want the melody to be clashing with these chords that you choose. If this is confusing, let me show you something that doesn't work in the song because I think it'll clarify the point that I'm trying to make here. Let's say I want to use the technique that we just used in our last video on Amazing Grace. Remember when on the 2nd measure, we replaced the 1 chord with the 5 of 4, turning this into this? That works beautifully because the 5 of 4, C7, tonicizes the 4 chord. But what happens if we try the same technique on measure 2 in Shenandoah? It doesn't work at all. Why? Because when you tonicize the 4 chord with its 5, you're insinuating that the 4 chord could be paired with the Ionian scale. This D flat in the E flat 7 suggests that the A flat chord is being paired with an A flat Ionian. But the default scale for a 4 chord is Lydian, which has a sharp 11. a D natural in our key. And that note appears in the melody right here. So this A flat chord doesn't want to be paired at all with the Ionian scale. It wants to truly be a 4 chord paired with the Lydian scale. Chord scales are essential in harmony. You always want to consider the entire chord scale, not just the chords. This A flat chord is actually an A flat major 7, 9, sharp 11, 13, a Lydian A flat chord. So let's increase the harmonic rhythm by using 2 chords per measure. In the first measure, we have a 1 chord. A great chord you can use to move away from the 1 chord at the beginning of the song is the 4 chord. Now it sounds like this. And in the second measure, we can use the 6 chord in the tonic region to add some color to the 1 chord. Increasing the harmonic rhythm is a great way to add movement to the progression, but you have to be careful. Once you introduce an extra chord per measure, the listener is expecting that pattern throughout the song. You can get away with a couple of measures of more density, but if you decide to use 2 chords per measure, try to keep it that way for the entire song. Otherwise, you'll create holes that are just not easy to justify. So what happened to my first reharm, this E flat over G? We added the inversion to create a nice bass line that approached the A flat here. But now we've added a C minor between these 2 chords. So does this destroy our first reharm? Not at all. This line E flat, G to A flat still exists. Don't be afraid to interpolate chords like we did here. The bass lines you create are still there. They're just a bit embellished now. Let's listen to the first 2 measures again. You know what? Let's increase the harmonic rhythm even more. Can we try 4 chords per measure? So I can use the same technique we used here on this second beat in measure 1 to approach the 4 chord with a 1 chord in first inversion. And on the 4th beat, we can use the best substitute of the 4 chord, the 2 minor 7. Remember, the 4 and the 2 chords both live in the subdominant region, and they're great substitutes of each other. That sounds really cool, but now that we've created this walking bass line here, our ears are expecting that to continue. See how in measure 2, we're now perceiving this 2 chord per measure as holes in the harmony? It feels like something is missing. So what can we do on beats 2 and 4 in the second measure? Well, today we're going to take a look at this region here. This is the 3/6 region. The 3 chord is so ambiguous that it lives in its own island between the dominant region and the tonic region on our map. It can function as a tonic chord or as a dominant chord, and it's a great chord to precede the 6 chord with. Remember that the 3 chord precedes the 6 chord in the circle of fifths also. So a 3/6 creates a root movement of a perfect fifth down, which is the strongest bass movement in tonal harmony. That's why a 3-6-2-5-1 progression is so common. So targeting the 6 chord with the 3 chord is always effective. Also, when we follow a 1 chord with the 3 chord, the 3 chord sounds like a 1 major 7 add 9 chord in first inversion. G minor 7 is an upper structure of E flat major 7. So you can always use this path here, a 1-3-6, to reharmonize a 1 chord. And that's what we'll do on the second beat here. And on beat 4, we can play a C minor over B flat. Now we have this. Did you see what we did here? A of course, we used the third inversion of the sixth chord to create a descending stepwise bass line in the bass. Now we have a really interesting bass line for the first two measures. And let's turn this A flat chord into an A flat major 7. The 4 major 7 contains the 6th chord inside of it. So another way of looking at this reharm is to think of just playing a 6th chord and a descending bass line like this. In other words, this descending bass line changed the function of the 6th chord into a 4 major 7 chord. Never underestimate the power of the bass. In fact, let's say I want to add a chord here on the third beat of measure 3. We're coming from the 4 chord to the 1 chord. So if we add a 5 chord, we can replace the plagal cadence and turn it into an authentic cadence. And the melody works fine. But if we play the B flat 7 chord in third inversion, and then the 1 chord in first inversion, we get this. Now, the bass line is working like a pedal point or an anchor. Pedal points are great because they allow us to travel around the map in a very special way. A pedal point anchors the listener's ear to a specific place while showing them other sites in the map. This is much like operating one of those camera drones while you stay fixed and get to see all of the surroundings. Let me give you an example. So just now, we traveled around the entire map. But now, listen to this. Now, we didn't leave the 1 chord, the drone did. We view the entire map, but from a fixed point. The really cool thing is that while we're anchored to one place, we can travel as far as we want without losing our sense of where we actually are. In our case, this is a subdominant pedal point. So the B flat 7 over A flat is a great way to move away from the 4 chord without actually moving away from the 4 chord. And of course, if we resolve it to an E flat over G, the 1 chord in first inversion, we create a stepwise bass line. In measure 4, we can use the exact same techniques we used in measure 2 and play E flat over G, G minor, C minor 7 to C minor 7 over B flat, that then resolves to A flat major 7. And yes, I switched the 6 to the 4 with a 4 to the 6. These are weak paths that usually work both ways. Also, instead of the 3 chord here, I'm going to use a 5 of 6 G7. The 5 of 6 and the 3 chords are really close in the map. They share lots of properties. And the 5 of 6 is always a great substitution of the 3 chord. That's because the 3 chord's minor third is the sharp 9 of the 5 of 6. On a G minor chord, the B flat works as the minor third. But on the G7, it works as the sharp 9. Always remember, when you see a minor chord and the melody is the minor third, you can always consider replacing that minor chord with a dominant chord. And it works great, so don't be afraid of reharmonizing a minor chord with the dominant if the melody is the flat 3 of that minor chord. All right, so let's listen to what we got so far. So what can we do here? We can use a secondary dominant to target the 6th chord, the 5 of 6, G7. Now we're tonicizing the 6th chord. And of course, we can interpolate the related 2, D minor 7 flat 5, and turn the arrow path into a bracket arrow path. So instead of going from the 4 chord to the 6 chord, which is a weak path, we now have this. Which tonicizes the 6 chord nicely. This creates a bass line also that moves by a tritone, which is not great. But if we play the D minor 7 flat 5 in second inversion, we get a pedal point. Please always consider the bass line. And let me show you a more advanced technique that we can use on beat 2 of this measure right here. I'm going to use a 4 augmented chord. So A flat major 7 to A flat augmented major 7 to D minor 7 flat 5 over A flat to G7 sharp 9 to C minor 7. See how good that sounds? Augmented chords are great to introduce line cliches into harmony. A line cliche is a line that moves stepwise up or down in one of the voices of the harmony, and they're usually chromatic movements. The 1 and the 4 chords both have the augmented version of them available. So the A flat augmented chord here creates this great inner line, E flat, E natural, F, that allows us to arrive at the D minor 7 flat 5 smoothly. Keep in mind that when you reharmonize, you don't have to work in a sequential fashion, measure by measure. In fact, many times you might want to work backwards considering your targets. So let's go to measure 9 at the end of the song, where we have the 4-5-1 progression. And let's change it into a 2-5-1 progression. Also, let's borrow the 5-7 flat 9 chord from the minor mode and turn the B flat 7 into a B flat 7 flat 9. Remember, you can always borrow the same function from the minor mode when you're in major. And like we've said time and again, that only works one way. You cannot borrow chords from the major mode when you're in minor. So now we have a more melancholy sound because the B flat 7 flat 9 is being borrowed from the key of E flat minor. This kind of reminds me of the path that we took at the end of Amazing Grace in our last video. Remember when we used the 4 to sharp 4 diminished 7 to the 1-6-4? Can we do the same here? That would be E flat to A diminished 7 to E flat over B flat. The problem we have here is the melody. This G note doesn't work at all on the A diminished 7, but there's a variation of the sharp 4 diminished 7 which contains that G note instead of the F sharp. This is usually seen as the 7 minor 7 flat 5 of 5. And again, we can see this as a bass line reharm, A flat to A to B flat. So we're just raising the root of the A flat major 7 to an A, which turns it into an A minor 7 flat 5 chord. So remember, by just raising the 4 chords root a half step, we're taking this path. And interestingly enough, there's another way to arrive at this A minor 7 flat 5 chord by using another bass line, and that's from the 6 chord. So look at measure 6. We have a 6 chord here. But if we move the bass down, we get this. Now we got to the same A minor 7 flat 5 chord here by turning the C minor into a C minor 7 over B flat and then into a C minor 6 over A, which is the same as an A minor 7 flat 5. This is another line cliche that takes us from the 6 chord to the sharp 4 diminished 7. And don't forget that the 6th chord as a minor 7 chord is the 2 of 5, as we saw in Amazing Grace. Remember how we approached the 5 chord using the 6 to the 2 in third inversion, and then the 5 of 5 in first inversion? Well, now that we're thinking of the bass as our source for reharmonization, we get to a sharp 4 minor 7 flat 5 instead, because we're only moving the bass and leaving the chord alone. All right, so let's listen to what we have so far. Please notice how I've added a few tensions on some of the chords, like on this E flat major 7. Remember that you can always add some color by extending the chords to the 7th, the 9th, or the 13th if you want. All right, let's do one more thing. I want to show you how to create a different reharmonization based on this one that we just did. Whenever you write a reharmonization, it's a great exercise to recreate it in a different key because the functions, paths, and concepts are all going to be the same, but the chords are going to be completely different. Modulating to another key and reusing the same exact concepts is one of the best exercises you'll ever do. Plus, it makes for a much better version of the song. So how do we modulate and into which key? It doesn't really matter. You can just do a direct modulation and start the song a half step up if you want. And of course, if you have Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro, you can just change the song to another key and practice playing the new progression and studying the paths that we've used. For our reharm, I'm going to choose a specific key that will allow me to write a great ending technique. And we're going to use a pivot chord modulation. So let's modulate to the key of C major. And why C major? Because it's the key of the 6th chord. So we're going to modulate a minor third down. If we modulate to the key of C major, we have the entire key of our original key of E flat embedded inside of the circles. Remember, the chords outside of the circles are from the major mode, and the chords inside of the circles are from the minor mode. And in our case, that's C minor, which is the relative minor of E flat major. So when we're in C major, most of the chords that we'll borrow from C minor are chords from E flat major. This adds a lot of consistency in the arrangement because the two keys are related. So now we can write an ending in the key of C major like this. A flat 6, 4 minor, flat 3, flat 2, 1 progression. All chords borrowed from the minor mode. For the rest of the reharm in the key of C, I'm going to use the same exact techniques that we've been talking about today, and using Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro makes it really easy. I have my reharm in E flat major. I just click on the C key, and now I have the entire progression in the key of C. But I want to change the first two measures and use a descending bass line to write a new reharmonization. And it's pretty easy to write reharms based with these kind of bass lines. Listen to the melody against the bass line. Now we just need to find nice chords from the key of C major that contain that bass line as chord tones, and you get something like this. Remember, the bass line could be any of the chord tones in a chord. It could be the 3rd and you'll have a chord in 1st inversion, or it could be the 7th and you'll have a chord in 3rd inversion. There are a couple other places where I've changed the reharmonization, but these reharms are all based on techniques that we've already seen and talked about. See if you can spot them and let us know what they are in the comments down below. So here's our final reharmonization of Shenandoah. And remember to look at this and all chord progressions as a journey around the map. If you have Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro, change the key and play the progression by thinking of the paths that you're taking. Soon enough, you'll be able to travel around the map in your head in any key and reharmonize on the fly. All of our members will have access to the PDF for this lesson. Just go to the membership tab and click on the link provided in the latest post. There, you'll find this lesson's PDF at the top, and if you scroll down, you'll see all the PDFs that are available to you. Also, if you want to access content outside of your window of accessibility, you can get our Music Theory Journal, which is basically an almanac of all the content that we published so far, available on mDecks.com. Here's our final reharmonization. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Remember, Mapping Tonal Harmony Pro is available on mDecks.com and on the App Store. I'll put a link in the description down below for those of you who want to learn more about this wonderful app. Practice and always remember to enjoy the process. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. Go ahead and stick around and check out one of these two videos here, and we'll catch you next time.